Greetings, and welcome, Hunter Initiates, to my class. I'm Cara Blockwood, your assigned paranormal professor. Today's training course will prepare you for what you will encounter out in the field. Not every entity will behave in the same manner. And knowing these differences could be what stands between life and death. This profession isn't for the faint of heart. So if at any time you find your stomach roiling in your gut, you want to crawl out of your skin or hide under your bed, simply make way for the exit, go cuddle your favorite crucifix, for this isn't the place for you. For all others brave enough to face their fears, open up your textbooks, grab your notebook and pen, and let us begin. But before we do, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that noti bell so you can stay on top of the ghostly threats that are out there. Let's hop into this next lesson. Chapter 6, Section 6.1. Shade. What are they? Shade are ancient concepts for a spirit or ghost of a deceased person, originating with ties from Greek and Latin words scia and umbra, meaning shadow. The spirits in question are thought to live in the gloomy underworld, representing a lesser, shadow-like existence of the deceased. The word shade later became to mean ghost in the English language around the 1610s, drawing from the classical roots to describe a spectral, ephemeral presence. The shades, also referred to as shadows, are undead that are formed in the dark and drain the strength of the living. These spiritual manifestations are so dark that they only can be detected in very bright light. Now, the rest of the time, they look like your run-of-the-mill shadows. Shadows live between two planes of existence. On the primary material plane, where human beings and other living creatures reside, in the format of shadow, and then on the flip side, the negative material plane, in the form of a living being that it appeared as before it had passed. Chapter 6, Section 6.2. Behaviors and Evidences. On average, the shade is more unlikely to perform interactions than any other ghost. The entity is known to be very shy, appearing as a shadow. Now, evidence suggests a shade will stop all paranormal activity if people are nearby, so hunting it with a singular hunter is best. The shade can only hunt when sanity levels have reached 35%, which is far lower than most other ghosts. With these details, a shade is one of the more difficult ghosts to track down. Although lack of interaction still may be a sure sign that it is present, and give away its type and narrow the type down for the hunters. The best thing to do is try to keep multiple hunters out of the ghost room and attempt to use incense or specific possible cursed possessions to try and get the shade to interact and to lure it out with the environment. The cursed possession may cause the entity to appear, and it will appear as a shadow, although it's not guaranteed to happen every single time. So if a full body manifestation with the entity doesn't necessarily rule it out. Turning off the lights to the designated ghost room may also be beneficial to discovering the shade. Evidence found on site are as follows: EMF level 5, ghost writing, and freezing temperatures. Chapter 6, Section 6.3. Tools of the Hunt. Some ghosts, like the demon, will leave behind. Some ghosts, like the shade, will leave behind electromagnetic fields, EMF for short, when they interact with objects. It's especially important to keep an eye out for a reading of EMF level 5. Anything lower, you can't be sure. Simply activate the EMF reader and pay attention to what level the activity reaches, and the bars, which will go from green to yellow to red, being the strongest reading. The next evidence of ghost writing can be tracked by using a notebook or a ghost writing book. The hunter must place the book open and on a surface for the ghost to interact with it. If the book is closed, no detections can be made. Now, if the entity is capable, the book will rise and frantic scribbling will be seen. The entity might also toss the book if it doesn't have that evidence, or if it is trying to hide evidence. So make sure you pay attention. The final evidence is freezing temperatures, which can be measured by by a thermometer. The presence of a ghost in the room will cause the room temperature to decrease, regardless of evidence. If present, the reading will show being dropped below 0 degrees. Now, class, that we've covered how this entity behaves, allow me to share with you an aspiring hunter story from the past. A story of caution to those who have ventured out after. This story begins with a hunter initiate, much like yourselves, Stacy Jacks, or Slim Shady for her nickname, was an initiate on her third hunt, getting the hang of most hunts fairly quickly. On one account, she even saved her team with a plate of her mom's spaghetti that she tossed to distract an entity. She was only 23 years old, with bright blonde hair and a pixie cut, with an hourglass figure. During her time at the academy, Stacy was well known for her raps about ghosts. She would drop sick beats denoting all other aspects and putting fun twists on it. The act helped her learn more and retain this info more effectively. The raps were so incredible that she held recitals every year for her classmates. And each time, she would have a brand new rap written and prepared. Rapping and musicality was Stacy's other passion. And at her final year and after graduation, she received an honorary microphone for her efforts and creativity. Even with the darkness that can come from some of the hunts, Stacy brought joy and brightness to the academy. Now, this next one would be very difficult though, for it was a shade. The shade in question was recorded to be found in a church in South Carolina in 2012. Stacy wasn't very fond of churches. She had some bad experiences involving her hometown, where there was a church when she was 10 years old. After the sermon was given, and most all other patrons had vacated outside to visit with each other and talk about the sermon, she wandered off from her parents to explore. She loved the architecture of the churches and some of the hidden areas that most didn't see. Now, one particular spot was her target. A small door hidden behind a curtain directly behind the priest's podium. The door piqued her curiosity. She pulled it open to uncover a set of narrow, winding stairs leading down. Stacy scurried down the stairs into the candlelit corridor, lining the walls in rows and rows. She discovered many skeletal remains. She gasped and went to reach out her hand to investigate a skull that seemingly was shuddering, as if it was still alive. She was a breath away, so close to her target. When it happened, the skull launched at her face, literally launched. She screamed and fell backwards onto the dusty stone floor. Then the skull started moving, and it moved towards her really fast, seemingly growing legs. She heard a squeak and screamed again as she noticed the biggest rat she'd ever seen, with red eyes glaring at her from inside the hollow skull. She stumbled back again and then turned to scramble up the staircase until she made it safely back through that small door. The rest of the time, she sat glued to her mother's side. Silent tears were streaming down her young face. She knew she had to help any souls who ventured there. Be free of fear. That was why she wanted to study the paranormal and become a hunter herself, just like her father before her, James Jacks. Stacy wanted to do her father proud. She approached the site at approximately 2 a.m. with a full moon in the sky and deep darkness that you cannot shake. Now, upon entering, she already could feel how freezing it was, gauging the temp with her thermometer. Shortly after, the reading showed the strongest possibility was near the preacher's podium. So she set up there to investigate. Her big mistake was she did not ensure she double-checked her results. Shade are very tricky to get reads on and hard to find with their shyness. Stacy did not account for this and found herself, after about 3 hours, give or take, of hunting, to have a shadow appear from the back podiums to swallow her whole and take all of her sanity with it. Every nook and cranny needs to be checked. Otherwise, misreadings could happen, or trickery from the entity to try and fool the hunter. Otherwise, it can go south very quickly. Stacy was able to make it out of the church for extraction, but not with her mind intact. She had earned the nickname Slim Shady due to her experience and living out her life in the psych ward on campus to serve as an example and warning to future hunters of what could go wrong on a hunt if you are not careful. All right, class, that's it for today. So be vigilant, always vigilant, and diligent. I hope you took detailed notes. There will not be any pop quizzes, no pass and go, and no collecting 2 million. Because after this course's completion, you will be thrust out into the field where this information and knowledge will be directly applied. If any of you have any questions or concerns, please place them in the comments. And remember, hunters, you are all that stands between safety and danger when it comes to the paranormal. Until class is in session again, stay safe, protect the innocent, trust your instincts, and remember, the hunt is never done. Happy hunting!
Go.